Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Not sleepy, a little peppier. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari. Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari. Jasodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Jasodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Chamunitira Vanatari. Jamunitira Vanatari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari. Jasodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Chamunatira Vanatari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Boom! Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Bo Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Vishnupada Paramhansa Pri Bhajakacharya Satat Shisham Divine Grace Abhay Charan Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON BPT Founder Acharya Jagaguru Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananda Kora Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Nam Char Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Shri Goho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Go Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Say Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki. Vrindavan Dham Ki. Mathura Dham Ki. Dwarka Dham Ki. Navadi Dham Ki. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki. Chamuna Mai Ki. Ganga Mai Ki. Tulsi Maharani Ki. Bhakti Devi Ki. Samveda Bhakti Vinda Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Say Sri Radha Giridhari Ki. Shri Krishna Sankirtana Jaga Ki. Go Premanande. All glories of the assembled devotees. All glories of the assembled devotees. All glories of the assembled devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritcham Naram Chaivam Narottama Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. So we are on the Maharaj Prithu, going back to Godhead. 4th Canto, Chapter 23, Text 26. Saisha Nunam Vrajati Urdvan Anu Vainyam Patim Sati Pashatasman Atityachir Durvibhavyena Karmana Saishanunam Prajati Urdvam Anuvanyam Patim Sati Paishatasmanatayachir Durvibhavyena Karmana Saishanunam Prajati Urdvam Anuvanyam Patim Sati Pashaitasmanatityachir Durvibhavyena Karmana Saishanunam Prajati Urdvam Anuvanyam Patim Sati Pashatasmanatityachir Durvibhavyena Karmana Saishanunam Prajati Urdvam Anuvanyam Patim Sati Pashatasmanatityachir Durvibhavyena Karmana. Not all at once now. Saishanunam Bhajati Urdvam Anuvanyam Pashanpati Vashitatmanatiratma Durvibhavyena Saisha I should say, no, that was me. Sa, she, esha, this, nunam, certainly, vrajati, going, urdvam, upward, anu, following, vainyam, the son of Vena, patim, husband, sati, chaste, pashyata, just see, asman, us, atitya, overpassing, archi, of the name Archie, durvibhavyena, by inconceivable, karmana, activities. Translation. The wives of the demigods continued, just see how this chaste lady, Archie, by dint of her inconceivable pious activities, is still following her husband upward as far as we can see. I'll say, you say. The wives of the demigods continued, just see how this chaste lady, Archie, by dint of her inconceivable pious activities, is still following her husband upward as far as we can see. Purport. Both Prithu Maharaj's airplane and the airplane carrying Queen Archie were passing out of the vision of the ladies of the higher planetary systems. These ladies were simply astonished to see how Prithu Maharaj and his wife achieved such an exalted position. Although they were the wives of the demigods of the higher planetary systems, and Prithu Maharaj was an inhabitant of an inferior planetary system, the earth, the king, along with his wife, passed beyond the realm of the demigods and went upward to Vaikuntha Loka. The word urdhvam, upward, is significant here, for the ladies speaking were from the higher planetary systems, which include the moon, sun, Venus, up to Brahmaloka, or the highest planet. Beyond Brahmaloka is the spiritual sky, and in the spiritual sky there are innumerable Vaikuntha Lokas. Thus, the word urdhvam indicates that the Vaikuntha planets are beyond or above the material planets, and it was to these Vaikuntha planets that Prithu Maharaj and his queen were going. This also indicates that when Prithu Maharaj and his wife Archie abandoned their material bodies in the material fire, they immediately developed their spiritual bodies and entered into the spiritual airplanes, which could penetrate the material elements and reach the spiritual sky. Since they were carried by two separate planes, it may be concluded that even after being burned in the funeral pyre, they remained separate, individual persons. In other words, they never lost their individual identity or became void as imagined by the impersonalists. The ladies of the higher planetary systems were capable of seeing both downward and upward. When they looked down, they could see that the body of Prithu Maharaj was being burned and that his wife Archie was entering into the fire. And when they looked upward, they could see how they were being carried in two airplanes to Vaikuntha Loka. All this is possible simply by durvabhavyena karmana, inconceivable activity. Prithu Maharaj was a pure devotee, and his wife, Queen Archie, simply followed her husband. Thus they can both be considered pure devotees, and thus they are capable of performing inconceivable activities. Such activities are not possible for ordinary men. Indeed, ordinary people, cannot even take to the devotional service of the Lord, nor can ordinary women maintain such vows of chastity and follow their husbands in all respects. A woman does not need to attain high qualifications, but if she simply follows in the footsteps of her husband, who must be a devotee, then both husband and wife obtain liberation and are promoted to the Vaikuntha Lokas. This is evinced by the inconceivable activities of Maharaj Prithu and his wife. Om Agena Timarandasya Gyana Gena Salakaya Jakshushan Militan Gena Tasmade Shri Gurave Namaha. So a little housekeeping first. There's some odds and ends before we get to the body of the class. And remind me at the end, we'll say something about Easter and resurrection. And I have 3 parables from the Christian church in the medieval times, which I think you might find interesting. And because that's the day, Easter, we should say something. The first thing is that, is this all allegorical or heavenly planets? And, oh, come on. Hell's below us, heaven's above, and, give me a break. If you want to believe there's some man in the sky who helps you out, fine, but it's not for me. However, the fact of the matter is, even by modern physics, even Einstein, that acharya of modern understanding, accepts the principle that there's parallel universes. There's 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions. Anyone know what the 3 dimensions are? Height, depth, and width. So we live in a 3-dimension, and you add the 4th dimension, which is time. What does this mean? I'll give you an example. And it's a good one, so that's why I'm repeating it. Does anyone know the example I'm about to give, which has to do with meeting someone on the corner of Grand and what streets intersect? Grand and Cass. What's the example?
You can meet there, but
Exactly. We can set a time. Janardanji, I'm going to meet you at 9 o'clock on the corner of Grand and Garnett, or whatever it is, Grand and Cass. 9 a.m. today, on the southwest corner. Couldn't be more specific than that. If I drew you a map, and you're a responsible person, you're there on time. You wait half an hour. Where's Swamiji? You've got things to do. I mean, you're very respectful, but you think, come on. Something must have happened. He's delayed. Okay, fine. You go on. And I meet you in my arrogant way later on in the afternoon and say, Janardan, where were you? Say, hey, Swamiji, with all due respect, I was there. Where were you? How is it possible that both of us were there at the right place, at the right time, on the southwest corner? How is it possible? And we didn't see each other, although we were in the exact same place. And let's assume we're not blind. Let's assume there's no other factors involved. How is it possible, Janardanji? Someone lied. Well, as soon as you add another dimension, on 2 dimensions, we're in the exact same place, on a grid pattern, but you add the dimension of height, put a building there. You could be on the ground floor. I'm on the 10th floor. So on one hand, we're in the exact same place, but you add another dimension, we don't even see each other. I mean, it's all around us. I have my phone here. All of a sudden, I actually had this happen. I'm giving a talk somewhere at a home program. There were about 60 people there. I noticed this guy in the front. I thought he had an old-fashioned hearing aid. It was when smartphones were first coming out. Actually, he was listening to a cricket game in India. So he wasn't. On one hand, he was completely in another place. Right now, which I don't have the inclination, but if I had the inclination and I could use my phone, I could be on Amazon buying who knows what. We used to have, our old amplifier used to sometimes pick up the police radar. Remember when we used to do that? Every now and then it'd pick up a, police, whatever their radio is. So right now, there's movies, there's games, there's shopping. It's all flying through this room. You just have the right device. You can catch it. It's all there. So there's multi-dimensions in so many different ways. Here's another example. You go on a computer. A kid's doing his homework on the computer, 6-year-old kid. He does little games. He does a little Zoom to check in with his teacher during the COVID-19 lockdown. Now, somebody else can go on the computer. They have a higher access level. They'll get into some other files. Suppose the guy works for the CIA. Who knows what levels are on it? If you've got according to your access level, you can enter into different levels of the same computer. Same zeros and ones, there's circuitry, everything's the same. But if you have the access code, you get a whole other world opens up. If you have the password, jeez, where'd that come from? So the simple point is that we are in a small corner of the universe, and we're very restricted because we're sinful. We're practically in quarantine, talk about being locked down, because we're like monkeys. Monkeys will always cause disturbance. So we're just put in a certain corner of the universe and locked down. And we're thinking, oh, there's no life on other planets. Why? There's life everywhere. What is it we were digging in the ground? You were digging in the ground, and what were those weird things? Nematodes?
Japanese something?
Yeah, there's all kinds. There's nematodes, there's Japanese this. There's these weird creatures that are living in the earth. Spend their whole time in the ground. If I go down there and take a snap, standing on the sand, take a snap of the beach, of the ocean, take a snap of the ocean, what will I say? Unless there's flying fish, jumping out, or dolphins, I'll say, or, whales breaching, hey, all uninhabited. Is that a fact? Is the ocean uninhabited? What do you think, Janardhanji?
Well, as far as I see, I don't know. As far as I can understand, I don't see anything.
Classic example. I was in Prabhupada's room, Darshan, with a number of other devotees. The man kept saying, as far as I can see.
Well, as far as I can see, Swami.
Well, Swami, as far as I can see. After about the fourth or fifth time, Prabhupada said, that's my point. How far can you see? If I'm climbing up a hill, let's say a steep hill, I can only see what's directly in front of me. Somebody who's at the top of the hill can see the whole slope. Says, no, go to the left. No, don't go that. There's a rattlesnake that way, or there's cactus, or there's a huge cliff. No, go the other way. I'm just strolling along into the cactus, into the snake, and off the cliff. But someone who has higher vision looking down, then they can give direction. So here the devas, they're looking down. And there are devas. There's a whole, the ant has no idea. There's so many entities that they have no idea that we exist. So it is not, it is one of the great change-ups of the age that we live in. That somehow or other, somehow or other the modern society has been convinced that all there are blind forces. There's the laws of physics. There's the elements composed of the, the chart, the element chart, or whatever it's called, And it's just, that's all it is. Atoms, molecules, elements, bouncing into each other by the random laws of physics. It is bizarrely foolish, and is contradictory to everything of our personal experience. So anyway, enough of that. So the devas, in fact, what is inside the temple of the Vedic planetarium, which was Prabhupada's prime edifice project he wanted to leave behind at the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, there's a beautiful Radha Madhava, Lord Nrsingadev, no doubt about it, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Panchatattva. But what else? Here's a big hint. It's in the name. What's the name of the temple, TOVP? What does TOVP stand for? Planetarium. So what is in the... Anyway, I'll just say it because everybody knows. Hanging in that dome, when they took Prabhupada to see the fireworks on 4th of July, the Declaration of Independence, which Prabhupada said is Declaration of Dependence, he wasn't too impressed by the fireworks. But he liked the Washington, they went by the Capitol building, he liked the dome, because in the dome, you could hang that chandelier, and it's all according to the 5th canto. And it can explain all the phenomena, the movement of the planets, the changing of the seasons, eclipses, everything that our astrophysicists, our cosmologists, our astronomers see and report. They all can be shown the exact same things, how it all works out, using the 5th canto Vedic model of higher planetary systems and the whole thing, how the sun is also moving. And Prabhupada wanted it as a big kick in the face. You say it's all mythology? No. So, it's not when they talk about the demigods and flower airplanes, we're just, the old saying, the eagle laughs at you just barely walking. We're just plodding along and the eagle can see the whole story. Okay. What else did we want to say before we got started? And Prabhupada says the significance of the 2 airplanes. In the purport, what is the significance of there being, after Queen Archie and Prithu Maharaj, their material bodies were burned up in the fire? Why does Prabhupada make a point of there being 2 flower airplanes? Balaram, you want to take a whack at it? Take them back to Godhead, okay, but why 2 as opposed to there being 1? What does Prabhupada say in the purport? They did not merge. I remember going to see J. Krishnamurti. J. Krishnamurti was a big guy, big jnani in the 70s, from India, of course. Prabhupada said India's manufacturing them left and right. So many gods are coming out. But his whole thing was that, it was all allegories. He's a huge speculator. And we'll get to why it matters in a minute. But my favorite thing is he said it's all beyond books. It's all beyond words. It's all beyond books. But he had a big book table out in the hall selling all of his books. And he's written so many books. I remember turning to my brother and saying, if it's all beyond books, what's with the book table, Didn't quite line up, If you don't need it, don't hear from anyone, you don't need any master, you don't need any teacher, then what are you doing on the stage flapping your gums? I'm sorry. But anyway, here was this big example, which people were stunned by. If I take this charter, anyone know this example? What is it significant about this? There's now an inside and an outside, isn't it? There's my charter, and it creates an inside and an outside. So this is illusion, and this illusion is the charter, and it creates the false picture, so they say, of there being separation, that the Brahman we are all one, it's all one, and there it is. It's all one. And it's only the time and the material nature and the false ego that creates the idea of us all of individuality. And if you remove the false ego, Buddhists say the same thing. You remove desire, remove the charter. What happens? Again, it's all one. Defeat me. Anyone want to take a whack at it? What happened to the charter? Well, you can give up the ego. You realize that you're all one and that we're all, found your home and home.
Where did the charter come from?
What caused the separation? If it was all one, what caused it to separate? If we're all one, why did we separate?
There's not much in common with us in the charter either.
Yeah, analogies have to be in sync, have to be in commonality. But what caused the separation? If it's all one, what caused the separation? And that nonsense Guru Maharaji, they all say the same rubbish. Frankly, when you boil it all down, it's the same kind of rubbish. They say, well, the Absolute took form. It's his Leela. So God's Leela is to come down here and be kicked like a dog and get a toothache and overeat and barf and suffer cancer? What are you talking about? Doesn't make any sense at all. But parents, good parents, human instinct, they have children. Why do they have children? Now, okay, you can say in the old days economic and, they needed more hands or, whatever. But really, well, it's just a byproduct of sex. Okay, you can say that. But really, even with birth control and economics, you got your, you don't need them out there working on the farm. Because there's a ras. The parents like to have, the little sweet children, until they grow up and become teenagers and whatever it is. But the ras, the relationship. So Krishna expands into all the living entities so that there's a relationship, there's a rasa. I've mentioned this before, I'm going to say it again. Of psychological tortures, waterboarding, pulling out your fingernails, the Inquisition or whatever it is, Inquisition. If you want to completely snap someone psychologically, what's the fastest? Dick Cheney and waterboarding? No, my friends. What is the fastest way to snap someone psychologically? Social isolation. Then you put them in solitary confinement. And even worse, deprivation of senses. You keep it all light or you keep it all dark and you give them constant noise. Or no sound at all. That's even weirder. And people will snap. The problem is they snap so fast they just turn into a basket case. They just turn into mush. The idea that we're going to be happy just vibrating, what's that? You don't even know you're vibrating because you don't have any sense of individual identity. So how are you feeling Brahman, or the oneness? It's just rubbish. Frankly, it's just rubbish. But as soon as there's two, so that's why there's two. Now we get to the body of it's talking about pious acts. Now this can be taken in probably can take it in many ways, but we're going to take it in two ways. We're devotees. What do we care about pious acts? What do we care about pious acts? Doesn't Krishna say, Sarva Dharma Pridyaja, Mamikam Saranambraja, give up all duties? Varnashram Dharma is for the conditioned souls, not for the devotees. What do you say to that? What was Prabhupada's famous answer when they asked him, Prabhupada, we're devotees. What do we need Varnashram Dharma for? Yeah, Prabhupada said, then why are you falling down? So the fact of the matter is, if one is a liberated soul, he is transcendental to Varnashram Dharma. And the activities we're performing do not, just like this, if I just perform mundane pious activities, then I can be elevated to the heavenly planets. But doing one's due, as the demigods are saying here, but all of a sudden they're surpassed. They were shocked. But by doing our duty in Krishna's service, that is the therapeutic touch. When we do our duties as service to Krishna, when we're husbands and wives and teachers and students, street sweepers, when whatever it may be, when we're kings, whenever we do that as selfless servants, then that what appears to be just pious activity bears an inconceivable as a result. It doesn't just elevate you to the heavenly planets, where your karma burns out like Cinderella when the straw clock hits 12. Zip! Everything, you fall from the head. Prabhupada was on a morning walk in Los Angeles. I wasn't on the walk, but the devotees reported back. Prabhupada was on a morning walk, and there was a sidewalk and a crack with a blade of grass. Prabhupada swung his cane and said, "And what deva is this?" The devotees didn't know what to say. It's a blade of grass. And Prabhupada said, one of the ways, the devas, you don't just get old. You don't get old and diseased and enfeeble and dementia and your teeth fall out. That's not what happens in the heavenly planets. You just cruise along great, then tick, 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 tick. When you run out your karmic bank account, and Prabhupada said you come down sometimes as rain, and you come down in the rain. Then that rain comes up as a grass or a grain, an animal eats it, and then eventually you get in the semen of that animal, and that's how you get back in the cycle. There's other ways. But that's one of the ways. So that blade of grass might have been some great deva enjoying, and their karma. So what is the use? Round and around and around we go, like a dog chasing its tail. But the inconceivable pious activities, Varnashram Dharma, which I'm going to say something about more in a second, but Varnashram Dharma connected to Krishna. It propels you so much so that the demigods just watch, wow, they made it to Vaikuntha Loka. So, it is like so many things in Krishna consciousness, in intelligent understanding, simultaneously one and different. They appear to be pious activities, and we do our duty. The whole Mahabharata, well, Mahabharata also, but the Ramayana is duty. Dasarath, Sita, Lakshman, what to speak of Lord Ram, Hanuman, Vibhishana, doing their duty. And by they're how you learn to color within the lines. It's how you learn to control your senses. Bhakti is not an easy thing. I remember Prabhupada saying, someone said, you're a bhakta. Oh, you're the greatest of bhaktas. And Prabhupada said, bhakti is not such an easy thing. Prabhupada said, I'm trying to become a bhakta. That's Srila Prabhupada. So we should not, before you learn how to ride a bicycle, don't take the training wheels off. If you got a coloring book, color within the lines until you're an expert artist. So they are doing our duty responsibly, according to Varnashram Dharma, is the means by which we come to this spontaneous platform. I had a friend, somebody I knew when I was a kid, and it's a long story, but his mother was a concert pianist, and she wanted him to be a concert pianist. And we would all be goofing around, after school, doing whatever little kids do, baseball or whatever. It was an innocent time in those days. We were all just goofing around, doing our small-time thuggery. And we would hear him playing scales, and we'd hear it, because summertime, windows are open. We'd hear him playing, and we thought, what a bonehead. Boy, he's really missing out. The guy now is one of the most famous concert pianists in the world. I mean, it's a mundane example. It's a mundane, who cares? But how did he become, and what makes you a good musician is you feel the music. You put your heart, there's something about the way you play. It's not just the fundamentals, the rudimentary, prosaic execution of the notes. But because you're so good, you put and it comes to life. So, where was I going with that? But he had to do the scales first. So before we can talk about, rasa and all this stuff, and I hear the sound of Krishna's flutes. Why don't we need to first become expert at doing our duty? Now, because we're getting out of time, I wanted to read something else. This later on in this same canto, in chapter 28, the wife. Let me ask you this. Who wants to say what else it can be compared to? Here we talk about the wife humbly, sincerely following the husband and obtaining Vaikuntha Loka along with him. Later on in the Bhagavatam and in other places, what does Prabhupada compare this husband and the wife faithfully following and getting the fruit? What does he compare it to? Guru and disciple. So I just wanted to read. It's a short purport, but it's fantastic. And then we'll wrap up and say something about Easter. This is the 4th canto, chapter 28. And this is after Paranjana becomes a woman, becomes a queen, Vidarbhi. So chapter 28, 4th canto, chapter 28, text 47. It's short, but I think it's valuable. Being now alone and a widow in that forest, her husband had died, the daughter of Vidarbhi began to lament, incessantly shedding tears. Purport. Figuratively, the queen is supposed to be the disciple of the king. Thus, when the mortal body of the spiritual master expires, the disciple should cry exactly as the queen cries when the king leaves his body. However, the disciple and the spiritual master are never separated because the spiritual master always keeps company with the disciple. Oh, there's a condition though. As long as the disciple follows strictly the instructions of the spiritual master. Text 48, and this is the purport I wanted to get to. That's the setup. She then prepared a blazing fire with firewood and placed the dead body of her husband upon it. That's what we've been reading about, this sati rite. When this was finished, she lamented severely and prepared herself to perish in the fire with her husband. Now, here's the point, the purport. It is a long-standing tradition of the Vedic system that the faithful wife, that we read. Similarly, a devoted disciple of the spiritual master would rather die with the spiritual master than fail to execute the spiritual master's mission. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes down upon this earth to reestablish the principles of religion, what is it? Dharma samstapanarthaya? What is it? Sambhavam yuge yuge. Yeah. Dharma samstapanarthaya. So to establish religion, vinasayacha duskritam, to get rid of the miscreants, and to satisfy the devotees, save the devotees. It is the duty of the spiritual, where was I? As the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes down upon the earth to reestablish the principles of religion, so his representative, the spiritual master, also comes to reestablish religious principles. It is the duty of the disciple. They say, well, why doesn't God just come here and straighten it out? He does, you bonehead. He comes down with so many saintly persons, so many instructions, so many examples. Prabhupada says, if you go inside the house and shut all the windows and then curse the sun, well, whose fault is that? Open the windows. Walk outside. It is the duty of the disciple to take charge of the mission of the spiritual master and execute it properly. Otherwise, the disciple should decide to die along with the spiritual master. In other words, to execute the will of the spiritual master, the disciple should be prepared to lay down his life and abandon all personal considerations. So this is what it's talking about here. That let me give my life, not give up my life. But why do they call, what do they call sannyasis? They call a sannyasi a social dead man. Why? Sannyasa is supposed to be called civil suicide. Why? Why is it called civil suicide, Janardhanji? They give up all their mundane duties, all the big plan making, and let me just serve Krishna. So that is the mood. That is what it's talking about here. When, according to Varnashram Dharma, duties, we execute those solely for the service of Krishna, what is the result? Inconceivable result, as explained in this. What happens? What is the result? We go to heaven and enjoy? When I get to heaven, going to see them pearly gates. When I get to heaven, going to eat them chops and steaks. What is the result? We go beyond this, back to Vaikuntha, spiritual. And Vaikuntha means, for those outside in the web, what does Vaikuntha mean?
Well, it could mean heaven, but it could mean the spiritual world of Krishna.
But the actual, very good, but what is the actual meaning of the word Vaikuntha? Without anxiety. Everybody in this, you watch a little bird. Whoops. You watch a little bird. It can't even eat a meal. So it's looking this way, that way, you know. So we're more sophisticated. We've got a triple lock on the door, or whatever it may be, you know. We've got a, I got a good IRA account till the whole economy collapses. So everyone is in anxiety in this world. It is the nature of the place. It is a house of cards only. Okay, so there it is. Now, we wanted to say something. Oh, and simple. It's described, and it will end here, but how she's humble and simple. If one simply, humbly, honestly follows, we don't have to be big. We don't have to be, I did this and I did that. And I mean, we want to do things for Krishna. But in the ultimate issue, that simple humility, let me just do my duty. And Prabhupada's, so many examples, but a quick one. Prabhupada was speaking in the Radha Damodar temple at Vrindavan, Radha Damodar, Jiva Goswami's temple, in Sevakunj, Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami's Nectar of Devotion, those famous. If you haven't listened to those Nectar of Devotion tapes, every devotee should listen to those. It's a series of talks by Prabhupada in Vrindavan. And on one of those tapes, you can hear you know that everyone knows, been to India knows that sound. What is that sound? Could so many things. But they're trying to get the lock open. And everyone knows that. What is the sound if you're carrying a bucket of water and you put it down? Clang, the handle, you know. Everybody knows it. Anybody who's been to India knows that. The sound of the handle hitting the bucket and trying to get the lock open. So, of course, now they've changed the design, but in the big courtyard, Prabhupada speaking here by Rupa Goswami's Bhajan Kutir and Samadhi. And coming through the gate, there's an old woman, and she's old. Barely gets the lock open, has to put the buckets down, cling. One of our ISKCON sannyasis came over to chastise her severely for interrupting Srila Prabhupada's lecture, being a disturbance. And the devotee was just about with, virtuous, holier than thou, about the let her have it. Blast her, as we used to say. Give her the sauce. Prabhupada said, no. Prabhupada said, every day, without fail, since she was a little girl, she goes down every day to the Jamuna and brings a bucket of water for bathing Radha Damodar. She has not to, what he's talking about, the mailmen, rain or snow nor sleet nor dark of night. Every day, she's never missed a day, brought a bucket of water, simple task, for bathing Damodar from the Jamuna. And Prabhupada said she will go back to Godhead by that simple, heartfelt, steady service. And when the devotees, the sannyasi to his credit, apologized, and when he told her what Prabhupada said, she just covered her ears. She didn't want to hear it. She had her Damodar. She had her service. She didn't care about what was going to happen. So that humility, that let me just serve Krishna to the best of my capacity, steadily, what is inconceivably, as Prabhupada mentioned several times, back home, back to Godhead. Okay, so some Christian parables. This is the day, Easter, when they say that Jesus was resurrected from the dead. And what does Jesus call himself in the Bible? Many things, but does he ever say that he's God? What does he say? He says he's Son of God. We all know this, but this is for the internet crowd. Well, wait a minute. He says, God and I are one. Well, the Father and Son are same in purpose. The Son is considered the representative of the Father. In Vedic sacrifices, if the Father can't be, if the Son is there, it's considered that the Father is there. If we're one in purpose, the viceroy, the ambassador, is the same as the president or the king or queen, as long as they're delivering the message. They're in the mission. So it's one. So they just, and they say that to understand, not all of them, there's so many different schools of thought, but God, his only Son, took on flesh so that God could experience the suffering of humankind. That's why God took a form. That's why Jesus was crucified on the cross, that he had to take God had to take a material body so he could understand and accept the suffering of the conditioned souls. What? Krishna says, Bhavagrihi Janardanam. He's in the heart of every living entity. Krishna knows the struggles of an ant, of every single. He doesn't need to take a material body so he can empathize or understand or take on the sins of the conditioned souls. Jesus is an empowered jiva soul. Prabhupada said, look, 2,000 years later, people are still following him. So we offer all respects. When Prabhupada was speaking at that monastery in Australia, and they asked him, what do you think of Jesus Christ? Prabhupada said, he's our teacher, he's our guru, he's our master. But we don't accept this material, the hodgepodge, he had to take a form, He was empowered with Shakti, with the power of God. Shaktivesh avatar. Okay, the 3 parables and we'll be done. When Jesus died, so that what? Jesus says it's, you have to do the work. You can't just, Okay. So we'll be quick. These are all from medieval times. There was a man who was in the circus. He was a juggler in the circus. And he decided to give it all up and devote himself to a life of devotion to Jesus and especially the Virgin Mother Mary. So he was living in the monastery. It was the birth of, because they're looking for some ras. So Mother Mary, they get some mercy, God is smoting and smiting and throwing thunderbolts and you're burning forever in hell. They're looking for a little karuna, and not corona, they're looking for a little mercy, karuna. So they take shelter of Mother Mary, full of grace. So one monk was an expert artist. He was painting a beautiful picture of the Virgin Mary. Another man was a sculptor. He was carving, the Virgin Mary with the baby Christ. So they were all according to their. Another one was he was cooking a 15-course feast for the Virgin Mary to feed. This guy was a simple juggler from the circus. What could he do? So he was feeling despondent. And then when everyone had gone to bed, everything was done. He went into the church and he did the only thing he could do. He juggled before a picture of Virgin Mary, just like offering some pleasure. Let me do it to the best. He was juggling candelabras, this, that, so many, to the best of his ability. He finally collapsed from exhaustion. When all the monks came in for morning prayers, this is the parable. When all the monks came in for morning prayers, he was lying exhausted on the lap of Mother Mary, and she was caressing him. His offering, amongst all the other offerings, she accepted. Anyone know why? Help me out. Why? Pure devotion. So they have the theme. Okay, here's another quick one. Man dies, comes to consciousness, the movies, zing, pearly gates, beautiful gold buildings, perfect weather, beautiful music. He thinks, geez, I made it to heaven. I never thought, there must have been a mistake, but I'm not arguing. Here I am. And he hears music coming from one of the beautiful buildings, past, better than the botanical gardens in Balboa Park, which Prabhupada said, no, it looks like Vrindavan, it looks like Dwarka. Beautiful buildings, parks, fountains. You can imagine this scene. He walks into the building. Everyone's in there. It's the most beautifully arrayed room he's ever seen. And everyone's there in beautiful clothing and, handsome, beautiful. Every kind of vegetarian Krishna prasad, whatever you're thinking about right now because you're waiting for breakfast, multiply it by 1,000,000, unlimited, by the nth degree, all lying out there on the table. He thinks, wow! But he notices one thing. You know what? Everybody's hands are chained to the table, so they can't reach the food. He thinks, oh my God, I'm in hell. Bring. All of a sudden he wakes up. It's a little different, but it's a different layout. But it's the same kind of thing. Pearly gates, gold streets, beautiful buildings, parks, whatever it is, Balboa Park to the nth degree. Same thing. He hears the music, goes in the building, same thing. Again, everyone's chained. But you know what was that? Everyone was feeding the person next to them. He was in heaven. Exact same layout, different consciousness. It was the consciousness that determines heaven and hell. And one last Christian, this applies to all of us, certainly applies to me. There was an ashram, a monastery, and it wasn't doing well. the monks were fighting, arguing with each other. They never could really get it together for, and they were all kind of fault-finding and a little lazy, and the local people weren't given much support because they just go there and immediately they're asked for a donation, and they're not feeling the love. They're not seeing that, so they thought, what is this? So, and they couldn't figure out how to get it together. They had so many istigostis, and they just went on like that. One day, a abbot, the leader of another monastery, who was doing quite well, came and visited. And the monks asked him, and the abbot of the one that was struggling, can you help us? And he said, let me just think about it. And he was there overnight, didn't say a thing. Didn't say they had their meal. Let's suppose they're Benedictines or Franciscans, vegetarian meal. Didn't say anything. And then as he was leaving, they were all kind of, he didn't give us any advice. So they asked him, just as he was leaving, please give us some advice. He said, well, I can just say one of you things. One of you is a great saint. And he left. Didn't say who. And they all started thinking, geez, one of us is a great... And he was a realized soul, so they accepted what he was saying. One of us is a great saint? Who is it? Well, that nitwit over there, he's always engaged in service. Maybe it's him. Or, geez, this guy, he's always talking, he's always Krishna Katha. He doesn't talk Prajalpa, he's not talking about, whatever rubbish. Maybe it's him. And then the person said, wait a minute, what if it's me? I better shape up. I better get to the mark. So they all started treating each other with deep love and respect. And they, like Prabhupada said, you must become acharya-like. They all started, well, geez, I better come up to the standard. I don't want to stay like this and drop dead and not live up to my potential. Let me become serious about becoming... And the whole mood changed. And the people in the local village, they like to come there. They like to hang out and associate with the monks and talk, well, let me help in the garden and let me give a donation. Let me bring some fruits and flowers. And the whole thing took off, blossomed. So those are two Christian parables. I'll let you think over those, a little bit about Jesus, and we can end there. Hare Krishna.